TBEST navigation and downloads. So we're going to start talking about the actual components of TBEST here and how the interface looks, and then we'll get into some exercises coming up. So let's start out with the TBEST Explorer, which is the main navigation panel for TBEST. It manages the data components with folder groupings, so basically a tree view type of structure. And most everything that you would do inside of the Explorer window, plus a lot of what you do in TBEST, are, especially on the lists, are driven by right clicks. So you would get to a context menu that would be relative to either the folder or the item that you're currently on or selected. Right click on it, give you a menu of options that you would use to progress and use TBEST. All right, so just in terms of the main folders, the navigation folders that are in the TBEST Explorer window. So we're really focusing on, let's see here, these folders, right? Transit systems, it's a list of transit systems, which include not only the main transit system folder, but underneath of that folder, you have network scenarios. You can store mobility areas, parcel scenarios, model validation status. There's reports and TBEST features associated with individual transit systems. So there's a lot of information about each individual transit system, and you can have multiple transit systems. There really isn't a limit on the number of transit systems that you can use. So for instance, when you go to the downloads in TBEST, there are 30 transit systems that are available in Florida. You could download all of them and have all 30 locally there for you to utilize if you wished, right? I don't know that that's an actual workflow, but it's certainly something you could do if you wish to do it. So there's no limit on the number of transit systems that you can have in your transit systems folder. The socioeconomic data packages, we've been talking about those. This is where you store and manage those packages. There are tools related to within the context menus. When you right click on the folder, you get to different options for those packages. And it lists, you can have multiples. So it's not like you're limited to Florida. You can create a different socioeconomic data package for any area in the US. Ridership estimation models. So we list whatever ridership estimation models are available. By default, it's the TBEST Land Use Model 5.0. You can create other models in TBEST, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And finally, we have workflow support tools, which are pre-packaged transit tools, including Title VI analysis, Title VI disparate analysis, operations analysis, access via transit and to transit. All of those are tool sets which are basically all wizard driven. So you would select inputs to a wizard that would then produce analysis and maps that you could use for those particular workflows, such as Title VI analysis. That tool is intended for triennial reporting. It produces maps and reports that are then you could use directly inside of your triennial reporting. So they're meant to fulfill specific transit planning workflows. Oops. Okay, so let's talk about transit system. I mentioned in the previous slide that you can have as many as you want. And in our right-hand panel here, we have an Explorer window with our transit systems folder open, and we have up to, in this case, probably 10 different transit systems. Most of those are within Florida that you can have locally on your machine and access their information and utilize them and edit them. So, and it can be anywhere in the US, and it can be internationally as well. It's really just a matter of, creating for international, it's a little more of a process to create the socioeconomic data package that you would use inside of TBEST. But it's certainly possible to do. If there are questions about that, that's something we can explore, maybe a little bit now, but more offline as well. Again, via right-click context menus, TBEST Explorer provides tools to create, copy, download, access, and manage all transit system components. Explorer displays the validation status next to the transit system. So if you notice, we have the status here. So it says unvalidated, unvalidated, and this links 2032 TDP has a 2022 validation. So that means that this transit system has been validated. Its validation year is 2022, and that you can quickly assess that just by looking in TBEST Explorer which transit systems are validated. So so just keep that in mind as you're looking through this, and you can quickly see which of your transit systems require validation. You also notice that there are agency logos on each one of these, so you can set your agency logo as you wish. So if if you right click and go to properties on any transit system, you can set the logo for it. And basically it then shows up all throughout TBEST as a branding. So that whenever you're creating reports, your logo will be on it. If you're creating maps, your logo will be on it, so that it basically flows through all the TBEST analysis, and so that you can easily identify that you're working with the JTA system or the HART system or any other system. Also, you can export transit systems to what we call .tbest files for sharing and backup. So essentially, it creates an export file of a transit system that you can then say, okay, I want to put this, back it up somewhere, and then you can, if you need to, you can bring it back into TBEST. So it's basically an export file of a transit system that you could give to someone else. You can say, hey, I created this transit system. Here it is in a .tbest file. You can import it into your TBEST and start using it. Or you can just use it as a backup. So great way to basically transfer an entire transit system and all of its components to someone else. We did have a hand raise. I think Sharon raised her hand. Sharon, if you have a question, please type it in, and then we can do that. Or if you need assistance, Sam can provide that as well. Okay, so our next section is operation and policy settings. So basically, whenever you set up a transit system, the operations and policy settings allow you to set the overall settings for the transit system that then will be flow through everything that TBEST does with that transit system. So for instance, we can define the service area extent by county or mobility area. So the example here is that Lynx in Orlando, their service area isn't necessarily defined by a county. It's a shape, basically. So it's not a single county, it's multiple counties, but it's not all of those counties. So they have a unique shape of a service area that they've defined using a TBEST mobility area. Remember, I mentioned mobility area earlier, and they'll detail it in much greater detail later on, but it's essentially just a definition of a shape. So you can define your service area, and whenever the service area gets defined, whenever you're doing a Title VI analysis, which service area is very important for Title VI analysis, that service area will show up in your analysis wizards when you're performing that. So just keep that in mind, that this will then show up in a lot of different places when you're using TBEST. And that goes for your operating and cost formula. So by default, you have a service hour or service mile cost formula. So I'll just kind of circle that right here so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the cost formula. And you can have a split cost formula. So some agencies have split cost. Others are just either service mile or hour. And in this case, the example is service mile. So if you have both, fill in both. If you have one or the other, fill in one or the other. And then will be your operating cost that gets proliferated whenever you're creating new routes. It will assign it to the new route, etc. You can also update operating costs at the route level too, which we'll explain a little bit later. Okay. So a few other policy settings, the default layover and vehicle parameters. Minimum percent layover time, 0%. In this case, vehicle seat capacity of 60. So if you're creating a new route, it will automatically create a new route with 60 seats. You can change that here. If you have your fleet is all 55 seats, then you can change it here. the next time you would create a route, it would be 55. All right, so you also have your Title VI poverty income thresholds and policy parameters. So these are really your Title VI areas. So basically, whenever you're talking about your policy settings, you would define them here. And this could be your household size. So the first option is for your income thresholds. So generally, this is derived from the Department of Health and Human Services poverty level incomes as defined by them. However, you can override that if you have local poverty level incomes that don't match these or need to be changed, then you can certainly change them here. You also have the Title VI policy parameters here, which are your market capture distance, your disparate impact analysis threshold, and poverty income percent increase. And these vary widely over every agency. So, this is where you can input that policy and then have it flow through all of your TBEST analyses. And if you go back to where we were talking about originally, where we want this to be something that anyone can pick up and use. So if I'm using TBEST and then I give my transit system to someone else for them to use, these same policy parameters will be in that transit system so that if that other person runs a Title VI analysis, it will be using the same policy parameters. So there's no question about, well, what parameters did you use and how did you set it all up? Well, it was all set up in TBEST and we used the same policy parameters. So that is the consistency we're talking about across users. And finally, you have the default annual service days, which are for weekdays, Saturday and Sunday here. So essentially in TBEST, we do annualize a lot of our information. So all of our ridership forecasts and performance and service are all annualized. And certainly you want to make sure that the number of days that you're counting for your weekday, Saturday, and Sunday service are accurate. And so this is the default parameters. And of course, this may or may not change very often. Or maybe once a year you would put this in, and that would depend on what service you have. You certainly on holidays counts here. So what service you might be having on holidays might influence these numbers as well. So all this is set up for you so you can manage your default policy settings. Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about at the higher level this workspaces component that's new to TBEST 5. So as a definition, it's a shared workspace. It's a managed location on a local computer or a shared network drive where TBEST can store and access a set of transit systems. So workspaces on a network drive can be accessed by multiple TBEST users within an organization. So it's not necessarily on the internet, so it's not a cloud-based, it's on your local file server system where you can get to shared information on a file server. Now, can your file server be on the cloud? Probably. So, and essentially, if it's shared out to more people, it could be shared out to more. But and generally, this is intended for internal to your organization sharing of TBEST transit systems. So you'll notice that the default transit system is in the TBEST 5.0 workspace path. So that's really what we're talking about here. So this is really this TBEST TBEST 5.0 is where really all of your local information, whenever you install TBEST, a lot of your information gets stored in your default information for TBEST gets stored there. So our default workspace path is in that folder and really is the transit systems folder within that path, right? So by default, whenever you open TBEST, you're working in that default path and you can't remove it. So it's just always going to be there. It's the default path. But you can disconnect from it and connect to other workspaces. Okay, and I mentioned earlier that workspaces combined with light mode can allow you to have TBEST utilized by folks that maybe you just have one ArcGIS Pro license in the organization, but you have 5 people that want to utilize TBEST. Well, you have the one person with the ArcGIS Pro license doing a lot of the data development work, and the other 4 folks that can access it in light mode can do the analysis work, and basically they are still able to utilize TBEST, but really without any cost in terms of licensing. Okay. So let's just clear this. On to the next. Okay, so here are some of the tools that you have with your workspace manager. So in this case, we can create a new workspace. We can find an existing one. We can connect to one. We can copy. We can delete. We can remove a workspace reference. And we can also check in and check out. So the check in and check out features allows you to gain exclusive access to a workspace so that no one else can go in and edit it. So essentially, if you're doing some data building and you don't want anyone kind of coming in and changing anything underneath you, then you can check it out. No one else can get to it. You do your work, and then you check it back in, and then everyone else can see it again. All right, so we'll have a little bit of an exercise on TBEST workspaces as well, so that will also help you kind of visualize it. One thing I will say too is that this, and I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, so I will draw it. So this service planning right here, that is the workspace name. So you see service planning in the workspace manager here. It has the green green button or green icon. That means that it's connected to the service planning. And you also see here, it says connected to service planning, connected to the service planning workspace. So basically when it's set, whatever it says here is the workspace that it's connected to. And yours will say default by default unless you create a new one and connect to it. So this one is connected to the service planning workspace. All right, just want to let you know that. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about socioeconomic data packages in that folder. You can see that you have a list of 4 different packages: California, Florida, New York, Northern Virginia. So each one of those is manageable. They were created using the TBEST socioeconomic data configuration tool, and then they are managed by you as the user locally on your machine. So for Florida, the packages are available for download. So you can see the Florida 2024 right here is that is available for download. All of the other ones would have to be created locally using this TBEST socioeconomic data configuration tool, which creates new packages. And you can copy, you can delete them, and you can even verify the contents to make sure that they match up with what TBEST requires in terms of data structures. All right. Okay, so here is the Florida data download. And basically, there are a few situations where you would actually use a package. One is obviously creating a new transit system. So whenever you create a new transit system, you first have to have a data package. So that's really the first step. If you're just starting from TBEST from maybe out of state, you don't have the Florida data download that you could easily access. Then you would start with creating a data package, and then you would create your transit system. So a couple other examples of when you would use it: if you're basically updating the SE data in a transit system, or if you're removing a transit system validation. So essentially, the packages are kind of like offline data sets where they're meant to be a regional data set that includes the SE data for census, ACS, employment, parcels. And then that gets pulled into transit systems, which are your kind of functional components in TBEST, where you're doing a lot of your actual work. So just kind of think of them in that way. Okay, inside of a transit system, you have content. So you have network scenarios. So these are basically your where you would have alternatives and your base year. You have reports that you would generate in TBEST, would be your Excel files or CSVs or PDFs. You have queries that you can create. So you can create and store queries using the TBEST query tool, and very handy. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Mobility areas are also stored and saved inside of the mobility areas folder. And finally, parcel scenarios, which you can create alternative, basically land use conditions, which are you can set to be some out year and then incorporate those into your model streams and your market analysis tools. So tomorrow afternoon, we'll be going over parcel scenarios, but this is where you store and copy and manage those is within this folder within TBEST Explorer. Also notice that the unvalidated is set for, this is our Gatorville system, so we're going to be using Gatorville for our workshop training system. So everyone's going to be using this system, and notice that it's unvalidated. Okay, just in terms of the network scenarios, the setup here is, and this is kind of a complicated setup where it's a little more involved, where you have a base scenario, which is read-only. So this is after model validation. So you can see this is the links 2032 TDP. And I'll just do some drawing here. This is the validation on the links 2032 TDP. This is your base scenario, which is set to read-only. So this after validation, the base scenario becomes read-only. And then after that, you have application scenarios in scenario groups. So you can create groups of network scenarios. So this is a TDP scenario group. You also have a TDP interim scenarios, links forward. You can have as many groups as you want to better organize your application scenarios. So in case of the TDP scenarios, we have our needs plan. We have, the no build, the needs plan for 2032, and then an alternative or high capacity needs plan as well. So you can create and store as many network scenarios as you wish, and then organize them within this folder. And all of those are managed within this folder structure. Okay. All right, so mobility areas. So again, underneath of our links 2032 TDP, and I'll bring out the drawing again. So again, we're at our links 2032 TDP in our 2022 validation, and we have our mobility areas folder. So once again, we have the ability to create mobility area groups. So you can see this grouping here is our groups of neighbor links, counties, commission districts, service areas, cities, and neighbor link is their mobility on demand in links. It's called neighbor link. And so they have all the zones set up in their folders, right? So you can have any kind of geography here that you wish, and all of this is importable, and we'll talk about how you build these in TBEST. But this, in terms of management, they're all stored here. And then you can get to all kinds of tools through a right click to open them, to create reports, to do market analysis, to do some GIS type of analysis with merging them and erasing them, and then moving them across transit systems. So lots of different things that you can do in terms of storing and utilizing these within TBEST. Okay, some mobility or examples include transit system service area, city or county boundaries, commission districts, and rural areas. So if you can think of, in your transit planning workflows, you're often maybe looking at rural areas as opposed to urban areas, and then doing market analysis and what is my service in a rural area versus urban areas. And those are the kinds of things that TBEST can easily answer for you, especially along with a mobility area as a definition of geography. So, this definition of geography allows us to condense our markets rather than just saying, well, we just want to look at everything from the route level. Well, maybe we want to look at it from a corridor level or a rural level or some other level or mobility on demand. So all of this allows us to do different levels of aggregation of information, including service and markets, that may help us with our TDPs, COAs, grant applications, et cetera. Okay. clear all that. Okay, ridership estimation model. So now we're into our third folder, which is this ridership estimation models right here. And you see that you have the TBEST land use model 5.0. So that is what installs with TBEST. If you open TBEST right now, you would see this model structure. So one of the caveats of this model structure is that it requires parcel land use data. So if you're going to be using this inside of Florida, no problem. You have the full state parcel data already pre-configured for you. It's all input ready and ready to go for you, no problem. If you're outside of Florida, then it makes it, if you're going to run this model, you have to develop parcel data in order to do it. So it's a pretty big caveat outside of Florida because that gets a little bit harder to configure that parcel data, but we do try to provide some guidance for you in the TBEST user guide. So we'll get into a little details of that a little bit later. So the model structures contain customizable parameters, equation, and logic. You can right-click on a model and get to all kinds of information about it, including what you see here with the TBEST land use model 5.0 parameters. So basically, you can see a lot of the different sensitivities and what the market captures are, the maximum composite travel times, all the inputs to the model that were used when the original development for it. And then, of course, these are editable to you, and you can change these if you wish. But of course, any changes to model parameters or coefficients is to be done with caution because it can have unpredictable consequences for your ridership estimation, right? So I would just mention that as we're going forward to make sure that whenever you are doing this, you are making sure that if you do that, I mean, it's completely optional, right? The TBEST land use model 5.0 is set up just to be run as it is. You do not have to do any changes to it, but if you want to investigate it, and if you'd like to make changes to it, there is a complete setup to do that, including the source code that's available in the TBEST Tools GitHub repository. That's you can just get to that through the Tools menu in TBEST, and the actual source code is all available to you there. So there's all kinds of information online and in GitHub. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with GitHub or not, but it's basically an online code repository tool set where you can store your code and everybody can get to it. So it basically makes it available to anyone that wants to download and run it. So just so you know, that's available to you as well. It can contain multiple model structures, which are either edited versions of the default model or new calibrated model equations and logic. So you're not really limited here. The simple path is just to use the TBEST land use model 5.0, no problem, you can do that. If you wanted to create a whole new model, you'd make a copy of the TBEST land use model and start, basically working with the source code and changing parameters and all that and create a whole new calibrated model equations and logic if you so wished to do that. Okay, so let's clear all of this out. All right, so finally we have workflow support tools folder, which contains our wizard-driven tools to streamline common agency tasks, where you would generally input a scenario network and specific parameters related to that task. You can run multiple analysis with varied network parameters and store as result sets. So under each one of these folders that you see in the workflow support tools, which are these folders, each one of these can contain multiple result sets. So as you run through the wizard, it will basically create a result set that gets stored underneath this folder, and you can have as many as you want. And then you can open them whenever you want. All the maps and dashboards that are associated with that result set can be opened at any time. And then there's even tools to compare them as well. So especially for Title VI and operations analysis, there are many tools to compare them. So if you want to compare between two scenarios, it's very easy to do that. All right. So, okay, so let's talk just a moment about the 2024 data release for TBEST for Florida. So it includes the 2020 census, geography and demographics at the block level, the 2023 American Community Survey ACS estimates, the 5-year estimates is what it includes, the 2022 LEHD employment data at the block level, and then the 2024 Florida parcel land use data, which is the parcel centroids. So whenever you're looking at the parcel land use data in TBEST, it is the centroid of the parcel. It's not the actual outline of the parcel. We also have the 2024 transit system updates available. They were done for the spring 2024 GTFS data. They contain the Florida 2024 SE data package. They are pre-configured with fares, transfer stations, and cost data, and ridership forecasting using the TBEST Land Use Model 5.0. So if you're a Florida agency, you can just come and download your 2024 data and quickly start using it. You may need to update it a little bit for 2025, but it is available to do that. In fact, what we're going to be doing in the exercise today is updating it, an existing 2024 data set transit system for 2025. So we will be going over that process. So here's just a look at the Florida data downloads. So this is whenever you go to the file downloads and go to transit systems, you will see the Florida data downloads. And so all of this is just easily downloadable for any Florida agency. So for our training data, we're going to be using the Gatorville transit system. So that is the fall 2024 existing transit network. It has 42 routes in it. It's crosstown radial type routes. Its fare is $1. We extracted the cost per revenue mile from the NTD. And so that's at $6.92. So that's something we might want to consider updating as well, because it's, you know, a couple of years old if it's from the NTD. So for the training only, this training data set, this Gatorville transit system, is preloaded with the APC stop ridership data. So that is the observed stop level ridership data that you can bring in through the GTFS. So if you have a GTFS of for your agency, you can, I mentioned this earlier, you can add in the stop ridership.txt file that you have to populate it first with your APC data, add it into your GTFS, and then import it into TBEST. When you import your GTFS, it will bring in the ridership data with it. And then you can use it inside of TBEST for many different things. So we'll be looking at that and what that looks like using the APC stop ridership data inside of TBEST, along with all the other functions and features. Okay, so that ends that part of the initial kind of, hey, this is what's going on in TBEST, some of the initial things that we want to do. And now we're going to get to some exercises. So our first exercise will be basically navigation and downloads. We're downloading a transit system and socioeconomic data. So we mentioned at the outset, there's a couple ways that you can do this. I am going to walk through this and narrate it. My voice maintains itself. And narrate it. But you can also, if you want to do this independently, there is a breakout room. So on your taskbar for your Zoom meeting, you should see breakout rooms. And if you click that, you should see a TBEST exercise room. If you go into that, Sam will be in that room with you, and there won't be a narration, but you can ask him questions through the chat, and you can raise your hand and he can unmute you. You can talk to him and tell him what's going on locally with you as you're walking through it. So, so if you want to go into that room, now is the time to do that. Go into that room and you can work independently. Again, you can also follow along with me. I will be walking through it step by step here as well. So the difference is the narration part. If you don't want to hear me and see me doing it and you want to do it on your own, then you can join the TBEST exercise breakout room. Okay, so we have 15 minutes to do this, and I'm going to start a timer here, and then we'll come back. We'll bring everybody back to the main room in 15 minutes. So with that, you can, if you want to go to the breakout room, feel free to go now. Let me get this set up. And okay, great. Okay, fantastic. So hopefully everyone can hear me, and I'm just going to be talking through this. Please post any questions in the chat. I'm sorry, in the Q&A, and then whatever questions we will get to them at the end of the exercise. So feel free to follow along. All right. So just start if you have the exercises locally, you're looking at them. I'm just basically going to be reading step by step and then performing the exercise. So I'm on exercise 2.4, TBEST navigation and downloads, exercise part one. Number one is not already open. Open TBEST using the Windows Start button, so we can certainly do that. And uh, all right, so I can just type TBEST here. Oops. And TBEST 5.0 shows up as an app. I've already installed it, obviously. And so we can just go from here. So basically what I'm going to do is just log in and type in my login and password. Now, your organization may be different. You may have a URL that you need to enter. So if you have a URL, then you would use this avenue to do it. And that might take you to an Active Directory type of setup where you would then be pushed into your Active Directory and then you're on your corporate ArcGIS Online. So it's a little bit different depending on your organization's management of their either ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. So it would depend on that. For us, well, we're just using the login. So I'll just take this offline and just type in my username and password and sign in. All right, great. So here we are at the default TBEST. So if we just kind of go through our next steps, number two is to go to File, Downloads, Transit Systems, or click the Download button or TBEST File Downloads button on the TBEST Explorer toolbar to select Transit System. So what it's basically saying is you can either go to File, Downloads, Transit Systems, or you can click this button, which is a little more of a shortcut, and go to Transit Systems. So what you'll see is a list of all of the available Florida agency transit systems. And what we want to download is this Gatorville training. We also have a great Gatorville training day two, just in case people get behind for day two. But for right now, we're doing this Gatorville training. Normally faster than this, but I think we have many people downloading it at once, so it might clogged up the network. All right, great. So once it's downloaded, it will tell you the Gatorville transit system was successfully imported. Fantastic. We can just say OK. We can close our downloads. And then underneath of our transit systems, we now have Gatorville. You also see that we are in the default workspace. So we're operating in default. And so just to open the Gatorville system, we take a look at the network scenarios. We have the fall 2024. So just like basically any transit system that you would download for the state of Florida would have one scenario, network scenario in it that would contain the fall, basically usually the fall 2024 network. You also have, there's nothing under reports, you have queries. So these are queries that are really the training queries. Whenever you would download a transit system Normally, it wouldn't have any queries in it, and it won't have mobility areas in it. For the training, we have these pre-populated. So for mobility areas, we have MOD zones, travel sheds, jurisdictions. Inside of each one of these is the actual mobility area that we can use for different things, and we'll go through that as the training progresses. But just as an initial investigation of what's here, mobility areas, queries, and scenarios. All right. So we're now on step five. Go to file, download socioeconomic support data. So we will actually use our quick link here, go to TBEST, socioeconomic data packages. So we have our single Florida 2024 package here. Now, this one definitely is a larger file, and I'm not going to download it. I actually have already downloaded it, so we don't spend too much time on that during the training. But if you're going to download it, just click here and it will download just like the transit system did. It already exists here in my socioeconomic data packages, so I can easily just check out the properties for it and start utilizing it inside of TBEST. Okay. All right, so moving on to exercise part 2, create a new TBEST workspace for the WMATA transit system. So as part of this exercise, we're going to be creating a new workspace. We're going to be configuring the Washington, D.C. area socioeconomic data, and we're going to be creating a new transit system for the WMATA transit system. So WMATA is the Washington Metro Area Transit. All right, so the first step is to create a new folder on the Windows desktop called Training Workspace. So I can do that. And let's minimize TBEST, go to New Folder, Training Workspace. There we go. All right, let's go back to TBEST. And step 2 is in TBEST Explorer. In the TBEST Explorer toolbar, click the Workspaces button to open the Workspace Manager window. So that is this button, Workspace Manager. And we're going to create a new workspace. And we're going to call it WMATA Training. And we're going to set the path for it to our desktop training workspace, just like that. So our new workspace will be called WMATA Training. It will be in this location. Now, this is not a shared location. This is on our local drive. But in practice, we're just doing this for training. But if you're going to be sharing it out, you would create it on a shared drive. You can also create it on local as well. All right. So I think that's it. So we just say OK. So it's been successfully created and is now active in TBEST. Okay, so what does that mean? So it's has the green icon on it. It says connected to the WMATA Training Workspace. Over in our transit systems area, we have WMATA Training. So we can close this, expand this out a little bit. WMATA Training, we're now connected to that. All right, so any transit systems that we now create will be in the WMATA Training Workspace. Okay, great. Okay, so we're on to exercise part 3, which is create a socioeconomic data package. All right, so we've talked about data packages a good bit. So now we're actually going to create one for outside of Florida. So to do that, we would just right click on our socioeconomic data packages folder and select new socioeconomic data package. So what it does is going to go out to the census data, the U.S. Census Bureau website, and use its API, application programming interface, to basically do all of the data downloads and configuration directly from the Census Bureau. So essentially, it's performing all of the TBEST configuration for the census data that it needs to pull that data locally for you. Right, so you don't have to go out to their website to do all this, download their files, put them all together, interpret all the field names and all of those procedures that actually we used to do in TBEST, but we've consolidated it all to this tool to be able to do it automatically, which obviously is a huge time saver. All right, so what we want to do is just give this package a name. We're going to call it Washington BC 2025. And we're going to use the decennial census of 2020. That can't be changed. The ACS 5-year estimates, the end year is 2023, meaning that it ends in 2023, the estimates. We could go back in time here if we wanted to. We could use the 2021, 22, or 23 data, but obviously in this case, we want the latest data. And again, same with the LEHD. We could go back in time if we wanted to. Okay, so that's just the defaults, which we're going to accept. All right. So a couple of options here. So address, employment, and parcel data, which are optional, right? So TBEST will configure the package without these. And even if it does, we are going to check this and include parcel data template files. And we're going to name it as 2024 as the source. But as you know, we don't really have a source for, at the census data level or the national level for parcel data. So what we're going to use is just a template. So it's whatever counties we select, it will create templates that in a mobile geodatabase format, that is what is the format that these are in, that you as a user would then, after this is created, go in and fill those in. And then move forward. The user guide has information on how to do that. But for right now, we're just really creating the parcel data template files. Okay, so we want to select District of Columbia as our state in this case. All right. All right, so we have our District of Columbia, so we can just basically add this to our county process list. So essentially, if we have multiple states, we could add those, add counties from different states. We had an example of Northern Virginia earlier where there are, multiple states come together, but they're all kind of within the same service area. So you can blend in multiple state counties if you need to using this tool. So once we're ready, I think we have everything that we need. We can just hit the create package and it will take a minute to download and create everything. Sam, how's everything going over in the breakout room?
Yeah, fine. We had a few people, and it looks like everyone's moved out. So I think we're good.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure everyone can raise their hands.
I
Just
think
let
I
us.
disabled that earlier,
Oh, okay.
unless you re-enabled it.
I didn't re-enable it.
Okay.
So,
And we do have some questions in the
oh,
Q.
okay. I didn't see those. All right. Let me find those. Oh, okay. Yes. So one question is, how do I access TBEST Lite? And basically, you would just need to have an ArcGIS online account. It could be a public account. It could be an organizational account that isn't tied to a ArcGIS Pro license, but you just need to have an ArcGIS online account, and basically that's it. Then once you have that, you can open up TBEST. Whenever you open TBEST, it will say that you don't have an ArcGIS Pro license, but we're going to open in light mode. So it's just basically automatic. If you don't have an ArcGIS Pro license, but you do have an ArcGIS Online account, that will push you into light mode. Okay, and then the next one is the Florida 2024 SE data packet wasn't preloaded for me. Yes, sorry about that. It's fine that it's not, and you can download it. That's fine. It just takes a little bit of time, and I think we're good to do that. So you're all good, Patricia. All right. So yeah, so those are the questions. So it's just cleaning up the tables now. It's downloaded the information, and so we'll wait for it to just finish up. Actually, it's funny. My machine takes longer than I think most of yours machines will take to do this. So just bear that in mind. It normally goes a little bit quicker than this. It's just my particular machine takes a little bit longer. So we're just waiting for it to finish. Okay, so yeah, it finished. That's great. So there's one question I will answer live. When creating the new TBEST SE data package, I cannot set to 2023. It can only choose 2022 or 2021. Probably have an older version of TBEST, and it obviously earlier versions would have only had 2022 available. So if you're using an earlier version of TBEST, then it would only have the 2022 data available. Okay, so we're done with the data configuration is complete. So it's going to ask you if you want to start creating a transit system. In this case, it says, please complete the socioeconomic data configuration by populating the parcel land use GIS template files. So it created the template files for us for the parcel data. Now, as an offline task, if you're outside of Florida, you would need to populate those GIS template files for land use data. So that is an additional task that you would need to do outside of Florida, not inside. Okay. So I'm just going to say okay to this. I'm going to close the package build. And now we have our Washington, D.C. 2025 socioeconomic data package. All right. Fantastic. So let's go to our next. So the next step, exercise part 4, create the WMATA transit system. So in TBEST Explorer, navigate to the Washington, D.C. 2025 package, and we will right click on it and say, select the new transit system option. So we'll just call this WMATA as the transit system name. We can notice that the source SE data packages are Washington, D.C. It's referencing the block level LEHD from 2022. The census year is 2023, the parcel year is 2024, and the transit system extent by county we need to define. So this is where if you have multiple counties, but like if, for instance, if you're using the Florida data, it will give you all the counties in Florida, but you just want Alachua County or a specific county, then you would select just the counties that you want to define your service area extents, right? So we talked about this as our initial configuration of a transit system was to define the extents. And this is how you would do that using the county level selection. All right, and also you would also, if you wanted to reference a logo, you can do it here. You can do it later on as well. And when you're creating it, we won't do it in this case. So we just say, okay. All right. So once this is done, we will have our transit system created, our new WMATA transit system. where we would then begin to develop our alternative scenario, our base year scenario, validate it, and then go through the process of creating application scenarios. So it's we're showing you the building blocks of how to create from the start a brand new system with a socioeconomic data package actually from outside of Florida. You can do the same practice inside of Florida, but you don't have to because it's all pre-configured for you. Okay, so we have a question. I'll just answer it while this is processing. Given the specificity of the FDOT land use codes and the expectation that outside of Florida land use classes and codes will be different, how sensitive are the models to specific land uses? In other words, is it adequate to generalize to residential, industrial, et cetera? Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, one of the big things about this is that inside of TBEST you have, and I'll just pop something up so we can all take a look at it. So I would just go to my TBEST 5.0 directory, and I have the models folder and TBEST land use model. We have this land use trip rates spreadsheet. So essentially attached to the land use model is this spreadsheet, which TBEST reads dynamically. So it contains all of the definitions and trip rates and calculations that go into making the trip generation rates for every Florida Department of Revenue category code or land use types. So each type will have a different or land use category or code will have a different trip generation rate. So, and certainly by time of day, things will change and so on. So, yes, it does matter to be, you probably do want some differentiation between single family maybe and mobile home. I don't think it varies a whole lot, so you could probably get away with just general groupings, but there is some difference between them. So, and you can look up what those differences are basically in this as well. So the resulting person trip rates is over on the far right. You have AM peak, midday, PM peak, evening, Saturday, and Sunday. So you can see there is some variation across. This is the residentials for the AM peak, midday, et cetera, right? So there is some variations to it. And I know that not everybody has the classifications, and it's why it's a little bit difficult to do outside of Florida. But if you do have, most of your residentials will be single family probably, maybe in bigger cities, maybe not. But so just you have to use your own judgment basically to kind of figure out how this all ties in and fits together. You can look up all these rates as you need to. Okay, so that was the long-winded example and kind of how you would make sense of that. Yes, and I know that not everything lines up very well with how the Florida Department of Revenue categorizes their land use types. So it really is the matter of creating a crosswalk table between, what the land use codes might be in your area versus the DOR from Florida, and then trying to make the best assessment you can of a matching land use type. All right, close that out. And so we have one more question. WMATA service area includes counties in Virginia and Maryland. How does the transit configuration handle adding additional counties from other surrounding regions? Pretty seamlessly. So all you have to do is select the states. You would switch to, we selected District of Columbia, but if you wanted to add Virginia and Maryland, you would select those states. It would give you all the counties. You select which counties you want, add those to the counties to process, and then it would combine them all together to create the service extent or the data package containing all the county data. So it's actually very seamless when you go to do it. Okay, hopefully that answered everyone's question. So basically at this point, it's 10:30, definitely time for a break. So we're going to take 15 minutes and we'll come back at 10:45 and start up again. Uh, we will stay around, Sam and I, intermittently to answer any questions. So if you want to ask questions, we can unmute you if you want to, and we can have a dialogue if you wish. But let's everyone take a break, and we'll be back at 10:45. Okay, Gary is asking a question. Where do we find the crosswalk table for parcel types? That would be up to you to develop. The spreadsheet that I just showed you comes with TBEST. All you have to do is go into that same folder in the C TBEST 5.0 models, TBEST land use model 5.0 folder, and open that spreadsheet, the land use trip rates spreadsheet. It gives you all of the Florida Department of Revenue codes, and then you would create your own crosswalk table to convert your local parcel codes and types into the TBEST types, and that's what you would populate into the parcel template files. So yeah, it's a little bit of a process, certainly, but it's not impossible. It's been done in lots of areas. So just take a look at the guidance, and you can ask questions as well. And if you want to if you want to talk to us, you just raise your hand. I think it's enabled, Sam, isn't it? No, it's not. Okay.
I can check.
Yeah, I just enabled it. So
Okay.
if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand and we can unmute you.
Hey, Rodney, this is Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Appreciate the answer there. So I got the Excel file with the Florida ones. So is there when you say the parcel template? So what happened kind of with the WMATA data? It looks like it made a parcel geodatabase.
Yeah.
And then kind of it created parcel templates. So maybe just walk me through that part of it. What should I be looking for?
Yeah, so you would, use ArcGIS Pro to open it. I guess you've opened it in Pro, I don't know. But essentially open it in Pro, and then you would basically start, do some of your own type of work to translate your local parcel data into that template file, right? So if we go to our folders, we'll add a connection to C drive here to TBEST 5. And we go to our support data folder, Washington, D.C. We have our parcels here, a parcel geodatabase, and our District of Columbia. So if we add that to the map, it will be empty. And if we go to the attribute table for it, it gives you basically 4 fields that you need to populate. The land use code, so this is the Department of Revenue land use code, the TBEST land use code that you need to populate. The internal building square foot, and basically this is heated square foot that would, normally comes out of your tax appraisals. The number of residential units, so obviously if it's single family, it will be 1 for the most part. But for your multifamily dwelling units, you'll need to put in the number of units at the parcel level, and then just the parcel area. So really, there are 3 the parcel area you can get no problem, but the other 3 are the tricks, right? So you just need to create your crosswalk table, and then use that crosswalk table to pull data out of your existing parcel data and populate it into this template file, right? And that's the process.
We have this would be a point data as centroids.
Yes, that's right, centroids. Yeah, so you just need to, one of the steps is to convert to centroids, which I think, you can find that for sure very easily in ArcGIS Pro.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I have a question. I don't see Florida anywhere. Did I miss a step?
Um, it could be. So, do you see my screen, LaMonica?
Y yes.
Okay. So if you are going to download, and we're going to download some additional information, but I'm just going to switch the workspace back to default, and I can just double click on it. So now I have the Gatorville system rather than the WMATA one. We're just really, it was just a initial thing to test WMATA and show that we can do the out of state. But to get to a Florida transit system, you can just click this downloads button and it says transit systems.
Hmm.
And then you should see all of the Florida transit systems in there. So
Yes.
whichever one that you want to download, you can download from here and it will show up in your list of transit systems.
Okay. Because I did do the Gatorville training.
Okay. Yeah, you
Could
may
it be the
have
And
switched the
socioeconomic
workspace.
data package, the Florida 2024? It could be that's missing.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, LaMonica.
Oh, so in the socioeconomic data package, I see Washington D.C.
Yeah,
2025, but looking at your screen, I see
yeah,
Florida. I
yeah,
don't have the
right.
Florida and other
Yeah,
transit systems. I just have the WMATA.
yeah, for our in-person, which we've done the in-person trainings the last couple of weeks, and we usually pre-load it and we just kind of miss that in the exercise. So whenever we're setting up the machines, we preload it so you don't have to download it. And really, you don't have to download it. I don't think we're going to be using it. It's really just telling you that it's there, but
Okay.
it's really it's here. So you would just click this button and go to socioeconomic downloads or socioeconomic data packages, and then you see the Florida 2024, you would just click it and download it.
Okay.
So that's really the only process there.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, sure.